On a warm March Thursday in 2012, World of Tanks received update 0.7.2. It brought significant changes to the American tank destroyer line, not least because the number of these very same tank destroyers increased. It was in 0.7.2 that players were introduced to an alternative line of American self-propelled guns with rotating turrets. The vehicles turned out to be interesting, and most importantly, diverse. A cardboard gun on tracks, a nimble DPM tanker, an impenetrable slug, everyone could find their favorite. But in the end, everyone had one favorite, the M18 Hellcat. This unusually fast for a tank destroyer had a good view range and a decent gun, which, although it took a while, caught the fancy of many. The which would become truly legendary with the introduction of the ability to purchase gold shells for silver. With available gold shells, the American will gain a whopping 83 millimeters of penetration. And while the Hellcat stole the spotlight, an equally important event occurred at the top of the American tank destroyer tree. The T-30 became the T-9. Once the third-tier tank in the game, the Moss's Terror and 7th Is moved to Tier 9 and changed class. Naturally, with the corresponding balance changes in its place, came the T-110E5, a universal soldier in the world of tanks. But unlike the T-30, it no longer deals such brutal damage per shot. Changes to the heavy tank tree weren't limited to Tier 10. A newcomer joined the ranks of the brave Patriots, the stubborn Tier 9 heavy tank M103. And although it was the newcomer, all attention was focused on its predecessor, the T-34. The famous and longtime favorite American was elevated to premium status and became the 8. While the switch from the T-30 might have been a source of dissatisfaction, this change was far less so. All players who had the T-34 researched when the update was released received it for free as a premium tank. The king is dead. Long live the king. Before update 0.7.2, World of Tanks had only 3 crew skills: repair, camouflage, and firefighting. These skills were relevant and in demand, but it was clear that 3 was not enough. On March 29, 2012, 22 new crew skills and abilities were added to the game. Players rushed to learn them, evaluate the importance of each, and, of course, put them to use. And while it's hard to imagine playing without the commander's light now, back then it was all a novelty. Players, following the advice of more experienced players or through forum discussions, tried to find an answer to the sacred question, what should I level up? It took a while for widespread understanding to come to fruition. Those with more experience quickly prioritized the light bulb, while those with less experience experimented. But ultimately, the light bulb became the primary focus for all players today. From that moment on, a culture of crew reloading began to take root in the game. And understandably so, leveling up a crew from scratch on each new vehicle was now extremely unprofitable. In addition to skills and abilities, update 0.7.2 introduced proficiency badges. The infamous Master of Crew became the hallmark of every self-respecting tanker. This small detail gave players new goals and presented a new challenge. After all, how can you say this is your favorite tank if you don't have a Master of Crew on it? And how many Masters do you have? It's hard to get a Master of Crew on it. All these phrases became firmly ingrained in the vocabulary of true tankers. To this day, this elegant element of battle evaluation remains important for most players. After all, what could be better than when the enemy dominates, the battle is lost, but at the end of it all, you see is a golden M. Tank tree changes have long been commonplace. There are many vehicles, and new ones replace the old. Some become irrelevant, while others, on the contrary, become too good. In any case, this is a natural process inherent in such a large and long-lived world. On May 3, 2012, as part of Update 0.7.3, many players experienced the irreversibility of this process firsthand. In this update, the IS-4 moved to Tier 10. A Soviet heavy tank, the predecessor of the IS-7, it became a favorite among many tankers at Tier 9. Its excellent all-round armor allowed the tank to stand out quite clearly when it reached the top. Simply put, it allowed it to overpower. In skilled hands, the IS-4 mowed down opponents in droves and was not just good, it stood out from the crowd. Ironically, as a Tier 9 tank, it was so beloved by players that they themselves requested its transfer to Tier 10. However, as often happens, not everyone was satisfied with the result. The ST-1 moved to Tier 9. It's a good, solid, and tough tank, just as it should be, and the IS-4 received a number of improvements in line with its new tier. This wasn't enough for many. After all, the IS-4 wasn't competing with other Tier 10 tanks anymore. It was competing with how it felt to be a Tier 9 tank. And while the bitterness of losing a beloved tank was palpable, the natural process of evolution always brings something in return. In the same patch, the Soviet heavy tank KV ceased to exist and was transformed into 2 Soviet tanks, the KV-1 and KV-2. These iconic and, for many, household names have become the symbol of Soviet mid-tier heavy tanks. The conservative KV-1 and Log launcher have maintained that wild balance between thoughtfulness and fun, and even if thoughtfulness doesn't always catch on, the KV-2's high-explosive launcher will remain with us for a long time to come, a tribute to one of the most fun vehicles in World of Tanks. By mid-2012, World of Tanks had almost ceased to be the realm of heavy tanks. Tier 10 still featured only heavy tanks, but the arrival of medium tanks and Tier 9 tank destroyers significantly narrowed the gap between types. However, everyone understood that expanding the remaining branches to Tier 10 was only a matter of time. On July 26, with update 0.75, Tier 10 medium tanks and tank destroyers rolled onto the battlefields of tank battles. The E50M, T62A Patton, Jagdpanzer E100, Object 268, Fog 155, T1110E3, T1110E4, and the Barchat upgraded to Tier 10. This was the lineup that was given the order to push the heavies off their perch, and it worked. First of all, the illusion of pressure from a higher tier disappeared, and secondly, there was something to push them off with. Almost every vehicle on display had its own unique characteristics. Everyone could find a favorite here. The E50M, an armored light heavy with an accurate gun. The Patton, view range and turret. The E3, a cast iron front. The Foch, the drum, the Barchat speed and drum, and the Yaga. The Yaga became the new record holder for damage per shot. Slow, seemingly arrogant, and intimidating, this German vehicle dealt over 1,000 damage per shot and boasted the best penetration in the entire game. But it wasn't the best in players' eyes. Medium tanks became the new stars, such as the T62A. This Soviet medium tank captivated everyone with its versatility. It had everything you could ask of a tank in the broadest sense of the word: armor, dynamics, and a gun. All these attributes were perfectly combined. The T62A became a kind of medium tank standard, which in the real world meant only one thing: it could do everything. The dominance of heavy tanks ended, and an era of equality began. The expansion of the medium and tank destroyer lines to Tier 10 was another step in unifying the tank lineup. Players now had choice, options, and, most importantly, new possibilities. Throughout its existence, World of Tanks has continually improved and become better. While most updates were evolutionary in nature, some were truly revolutionary. One of these was Update 8.0. This patch saw World of Tanks transition to a new graphics renderer, significantly improving the graphics while maintaining the same system requirements. Lighting, shadows, and reflections were transformed, and new effects were added. Visually, the game now looks stunning. Furthermore, 8.0 reworked 10 locations, breathing new life into familiar maps. The changes weren't just cosmetic, but also gameplay related. They dug up a place here, moved a rock there, and balanced respawns. All this work transformed the game. New tank physics also contributed to this. Before Update 8.0, it would have been hard to call the physics realistic. The Maus could drive along the edge of a cliff without sliding down. The T-52 wouldn't skid on turns, and a collision with any tank felt like a bicycle colliding with a wall. With the advent of realistic physics, all these shortcomings disappeared. Tanks no longer felt like cardboard boxes, and gameplay for virtually all vehicles changed to a greater or lesser degree. Now, fast tanks could enter spaces they'd previously never even considered. Tank destroyers could prevent enemies from getting close and were capable of pushing back opponents in difficult situations. No one was hanging over their heads anymore. Anyone could miss if they hit a rock, and taking a position thanks to an allied locomotive became a sign of teamwork. The arrival of new nations in World of Tanks has always been a significant and long-awaited event. Various schools of tank design opened up new possibilities for the developers, and these in turn gave players new experiences. In Update 8.1, the British vehicle tree was added to the game. The Queen's medium and heavy tanks burst into the game with a bold, uncharacteristic style. The Centurion Mk7.1 and FV4202 medium tanks were distinguished primarily by their HE shells. Their 210mm of armor penetration was enough to frighten any lightly armored vehicle, and the very principle of "at least I'll inflict some damage" allowed them to feel comfortable against more or less any enemy. The top-tier FV215B heavy tank boasted excellent accuracy and a fairly terrifying damage per minute. And it wasn't even hampered by its fuel tanks behind the lower front plate and the rear-mounted turret. This vehicle proved a favorite. Following the British, Chinese vehicles were added to the game through updates. Many had been waiting for them for quite some time, as the already legendary Type 59, by its mere presence in battle, foreshadowed the arrival of its compatriots. Chinese vehicles were historically accurate in their similarity to Soviet ones, but with their own differences. For example, the top-end medium tanks. They were distinguished by high damage per shot, decent armor, but not the best maneuverability and downright poor depression elevation angles. The Chinese weren't the only new nations in the world of tanks. And in Update 8.10, a branch of Japanese medium tanks was added to the game. Its crowning glory was the STB-1. The vehicle resembled the Leopard in both appearance and performance, but with some peculiarities. For example, the Japanese tank had slightly better armor, but due to this, the tank wasn't as agile as the German. However, the STB's main distinguishing feature was, and remains, its depression elevation angles. This is what allowed the Japanese to stand out from other Tier 10 medium tanks. Each new nation brought something unique to the game. Some made a noticeable impact and became new stars, while others shone less brightly and remained vehicles for variety. Nevertheless, the diversity of vehicles and nations has always made gameplay more diverse and allowed players to develop new tactics and strategies, which is, in essence, what makes World of Tanks so interesting. The introduction of Tier 10 medium tanks and tank destroyers was a logical progression. It impacted gameplay, expanded player options, and brought variety to tank battlefields. However, there were still two vehicle classes that fell short of Tier 10 light tanks and artillery. Their growth was less justified than that of medium tanks and tank destroyers. However, in Update 8.6, this finally happened. Tier 10 artillery was added to World of Tanks, the GVE 100, Artobat T92, and of course, the Object 261. These four horsemen were designed to incinerate enemies with thunder and lightning, and they did so with flying colors. The SPG's core principle remained unchanged. It was still stationed somewhere far away, and it remained indefensible. But to these two already vicious factors, another, perhaps even more formidable factor was added: one-shots of Tier 10 vehicles. With the advent of Tier 10 SPGs, you could head to the hangar at virtually any time. You couldn't see it, you didn't know where it was, but a suitcase worth 15,500 to 2,000 damage was already ready to go. Hopelessness coupled with impotence. That's what playing against artillery means for some players. For others, it's the same old story. You can play with one hand and eat with the other. It's a matter of personal preference. Nevertheless, artillery continued to perform its useful functions. Players tried to hide, didn't stagnate, and timed their reloads. At the time, a mistake in any of these aspects was very costly. SPGs would be reworked many times in the future. The developers will make them less powerful and limit their numbers in battle, but the rift between artillery and non-artillery fans will persist to this day. A battle without artillery is a celebration for some, while the Battle of Himmelsdorf is a tragedy for others. In the world of tanks, there have always been special vehicles, those that evoke the greatest emotional response in players. They could be too good, unexpectedly fun, or simply unusual. They always had one thing in common: they became favorites. In late February 2013, British tank destroyers appeared in the game. The branch itself was a collection of slow, well-armored vehicles with good damage per minute, with one exception. The crowning glory of the branch was the FV-25B 183. It was this vehicle that introduced the childish word babaka into tanker parlance, and there were understandable reasons for this. The vehicle had special high-explosive shells with 275 millimeters of armor penetration and an average alpha damage of 1,750 points. Under certain conditions, the FV could take out an IS-7 with a single shot, but more often than not, the British might consistently devour softer opponents with lower health, such as medium tanks. Regardless, one-shotting something that didn't look down on its enemies every 30 seconds proved to be a satisfying experience for many players. Therefore, its popularity is difficult to overestimate. The Babaka was a sort of KV-2 at Tier 10, and it remained so for a long time. But it wasn't the only special tank destroyer. 8 months after Babaka's appearance in the game, the world of tanks was in for a new shock: the Waffenträger Auf E100. This German tank destroyer could easily have played the role of a xenomorph in a tank remake of Alien. And it wasn't just about looks. The vehicle had a personality to match. In its first year, this German tank destroyer was truly deadly. A 6-round magazine, 560 damage per shot, a 2-second reload, a 1.5-second aiming time, bore 29 accuracy, and 352 millimeters of penetration with a special shell. No vehicle, before or since, had such a combination of gun characteristics. This tank destroyer was capable of taking out an entire Maus in 10 seconds. The Waffenträger's reputation began to provoke everyone to focus within a couple of weeks. And the logic was very simple. Either we get it now, or it reloads, and then it's all over for us. Now all that's left is to remember what kind of beast it was. The Waffle, for obvious reasons, was replaced with a grill. The Alien turned out to be Alien.